the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
We'll see what they do moving forward, but I'm with you. I don't want to see the 7:30 game be the best game every week.
Well, let's dive into Tennessee number 11, Tennessee Volunteers versus the number 7 Alabama Crimson Tide. I've written extensively about this game where both teams are coming into the week, but to start things off, Matt Green, your perspective on the outside looking in, and as a Georgia fan examining this game, how do you see it playing out on Saturday afternoon?
So this is a really interesting game. I feel like I've gone back and forth with this one a few times because I don't know what to make of the Alabama Crimson Tide, sir. I mean, we saw this team just absolutely dominate Georgia for a quarter and a half, and then ever since then, this team has looked pretty average. So I don't know if Georgia just, figured them out, and Vanderbilt, figured out that blueprint, and South Carolina's doing the same thing. They don't, all those teams don't seem to be doing it the same way. It's like South Carolina kind of mucked it up, and made it a more of a defensive game. Like their defensive line just absolutely dominated Alabama a week ago. And you saw Vanderbilt scored 40 points on them. Georgia really scored, kind of exploded on them in the second half. So I'm not sure what to make of this, because I think Tennessee is definitely the worst offense of those other teams so far that they've played in SEC play. I mean, I guess you can make an argument South Carolina and Tennessee are pretty similar, but and they're also, I think South Carolina is the one that just straight up dominated them, just man to man on the defensive line, and that's something that Tennessee can potentially recreate. But looking at this series, Bama's won 16 of 17 coming into this, but Josh Heupel is 1-0 when it's been played in Knoxville, and that's probably the most important thing. All that other history of Nick Saban dominating Jeremy Pruitt and Derek Dooley, that's not relevant. I will say what's relevant: in 12 quarters of SEC play so far this year, Tennessee has gone 7 of those without a touchdown, and I think I'm just shocked at what this Tennessee offense has been so far this year. We saw the Arkansas game 3-0 at halftime. Should have probably been 13-0. Florida 3-0 at halftime. Also probably should have been at least 13-0, right? With the fumble and the whatever they were doing on special teams before the half. I think if Tennessee has another first half like they did against Arkansas and Florida, like this thing could be 21-0 at half. Like I think Alabama is one of those teams that just, they're going to make you pay. Like I feel like they take advantage of their opportunities. It's just, you look at this offense, I swear the last 3 weeks, if they're either going 3 and out or they're scoring a touchdown or they're turning it over. They have 5 turnovers the last 3 games. So it's a very boom or bust offense to this point. And I don't know how much I can trust them, but I also don't know how much I can trust Tennessee right now.
21-0 at the half is a possibility for you. The Vols being down at home.
I'm
Tennessee,
saying if they play the way they played the last couple weeks, like Alabama's a hell of a lot better than Arkansas or Florida.
I'll just say, would you like to know how many first half defensive touchdowns Tennessee's given up this season as a whole?
How many?
0. The answer is 0.
That's not bad.
It's pretty good. So I would be stunned if Alabama scored. Like, you know what I think it is? And it's not your fault, Matt. It was a tough first half for the Dogs in Tuscaloosa. When Alabama scored the first 4 possessions, 4 TDs, you're like, well, look, if they did it to the Dogs, they can do it to the Vols. But I don't think that.
I mean, that Tennessee's looked really bad in the first half versus Florida and Arkansas. Like they were
for sure. Offensively, they've looked very bad. Defensively, they've looked very good.
If they're giving up those yards to Alabama's going to put 7s on the board. Like they're going to, those offenses are better than Florida. That offense is better than Florida or Arkansas. And the defense probably is too.
It's comparable in some ways to what South Carolina did, but South Carolina was doing it on the road. Kennard and Dylan Stewart, extremely talented defensive linemen for South Carolina. They control the line of scrimmage for the majority of that game. Tennessee, pretty healthy still on the defensive line. They lose Keenan Pili at linebacker for the year, but Jeremiah Thielander played a lot of snaps, and he's solid. Sophomore who will be filling in. Him and Aaron Carter, I think, are going to have a big game in this one. Last year, Aaron Beasley and Elijah Herring were the linebackers for Tennessee, and I think this is a big upgrade in the linebacker spots for Tennessee in this game versus a year ago, and they're going to be heavily involved because I think Bees and Elijah had, I think, like 13 total tackles last season between the two of them, and Jalen Milroe had 9 carries for 3 yards last year against Tennessee's defense. Tennessee was up almost 3 scores going into the half. They struggled in the red zone against Alabama, and that probably was the difference between Alabama having life coming out of the second half. They come out guns blazing and battle back and obviously shut out Tennessee 27-0 in the second half. But Tennessee's played Alabama really well in the Heupel tenure over the last 3 years. I do think it's kind of funny, and I kind of wrote about this, I think, today, was just how both fan bases just have no idea what to make of this game. Like, both fan bases don't feel great. Both fan bases don't really want to watch this game because they just feel like it could go so many different ways for their team. It's never felt more open. Like, this game has never felt more of a toss-up in a really long time in this series. Obviously pre-Saban and everything else, but it's been a long time since both fan bases came in and like, look, man, I don't know. Like, no one's going to be talking trash. I understand some will still because it's Bama, Tennessee, but the Bama fans coming in this weekend, the Tennessee fans here, I don't think anyone can say, looking at their teams, even though they're both 5-1, and be like, yeah, no, this is, we feel great. This is the matchup we want to see. But at the same time, Bama's got real problems. Vols, I think one of the biggest tests to me is they're 110th in opponent offensive strength to this point. So they have been dominant on defense, but they've played some bad offenses here through the first 6 games of the season. So we'll see what that looks like. But Boo Carter, true freshman, he's coming off his best game. I think he'll be heavily involved for Tennessee in containing Milroe. I think Tennessee is built to contain Milroe, similar to the way that South Carolina contained him. And I think Milroe is going to have to beat Tennessee downfield. Like, Ryan Williams is going to have a big game. I think Alabama's receivers are going to have to challenge Tennessee, but Tennessee's corners are the best corners they've had in maybe the 21st century, with Ricky Gibson and Jermod McCoy, who played, I think, 70 snaps last week against Florida. So I think one of the things that makes Florida actually weirdly a worse matchup for Tennessee's defense is they attacked the middle of the field. Graham Mertz was very comfortable just taking what Tennessee gave him and was very patient. And like, he'll be like, I'll have 18 straight completions over the middle of the field and be fine. Like, we'll route, or we'll do a crosser, whatever. I just don't think Bama's offense is built like that. I think Bama's going to take chances. I think they're going to try and get Milroe out in space, and they're obviously he's going to try and use his legs. I don't think it's going to happen. Like, it didn't work at all last year, and I think they're going to struggle to run the ball against Tennessee, especially on the road here on Saturday. So I don't think that's going to happen. Ryan Williams, I think, has to have a big game for Bama to really take advantage. But it's also, like, one of the things I think it's interesting about Bama right now is they're just giving up chunk plays all over the place in the passing game. And I think if there was a game where Tennessee's offense, especially downfield, breaks out, it's actually weirdly enough against Bama, because I think Kentucky's going to give them problems downfield with just their pass pro. I think Vanderbilt's not going to allow Tennessee to be on the field all that much with how their offense is built. I think Georgia has obviously done a really good job, better than anybody else, against Tennessee's passing game over the last 3 years. So if there was a breakout game, it's actually against Alabama, weirdly enough, because this secondary, I think, is gettable. And if you're going to do it, you have to do it. But Dante Thornton was not really available last Saturday, and he's been your best receiver, averaging 33 yards per reception, 3 TDs. He's the only Tennessee receiver to score a touchdown in SEC play, and he needs to play. And I'm very curious to see what his limitations look like on Saturday, because I think for Tennessee to break through, he's going to have to play on the outside. He's going to play a lot of snaps. He's going to put a lot of pressure on this Alabama secondary, because he's been your biggest big play threat. And I struggle to see how that works if Dante Thornton is not healthy enough to be an active part of this rotation. Bruce banged up, Squirrel's banged up. You got to figure it out. So if the passing game's going to break through, I think this is the week that it breaks through. And my gut is, I think they do enough. I think Tennessee wins this game. I think Tennessee wins this game close. I don't think it's anything close to what it was in 2022. I don't think it's going to be like a back and forth kind of haymaker type game. I think both teams have both teams are top 10 for different reasons, but I think it's going to be a heavyweight fight that Tennessee benefits from at home. And I think Nico plays his best game in conference play here. And I think Tennessee ultimately wins, let's say, I think they're going to have to score at least 30 offensively to win this game. And I think this defense gives up the most points it has to anybody against Alabama. So give me Tennessee 34, Bama 31. Not nearly as high scoring as 2022, but I do think Tennessee ultimately wins out here.
An offensive explosion from the Vols. Chase Thomas is predicting. See, I think that's what I come back to, because like you said, like this Tennessee team, I think matches up with Alabama really well in terms of defensively, like just being able to, disrupt on the defensive line. I think that's the strength of this Tennessee team right now. I just don't trust this Tennessee offense, really. Like you look at what they've done, 14 points in versus Arkansas, 17 points in regulation versus Florida, like even 25 versus Oklahoma, like that's fine. Like I still haven't seen enough where I think Arkansas's defense right now is only giving up 22 points a game in SEC play. That's actually better than Alabama. They're giving up 27 a game. I think this, with how Florida and Arkansas are both able to get pressure, I think Alabama's going to be able to get pressure the same way. And I don't think I trust Tennessee's offense enough to score. So I think this game is going to be really low scoring personally. So I'm going to say first team to 20 wins this game. Give me Alabama going on the road, 21-17. I think there's going to be a couple of turnover. And it's interesting how they've done it. Like you look at South Carolina and Vanderbilt, like Vanderbilt just gashed them all over the place. South Carolina, I mean, they did have like close to 400 yards in that game, but it felt like more of the defense and the turnovers. Like Alabama scored with a couple short fields. Like it's been very, very different with how the last couple of weeks have gone. And they did beat South Carolina, as much as we're talking about it like it was a loss. But I don't know. I think Alabama's just going to have a little bit more. So give me Alabama. Like I said, 21-17.
There you go. Next up in Austin, where College Game Day and Scotty Scheffler are making some picks for Texas, Georgia, biggest game in a long time. This feels kind of like a changing of the guard potentially, where a lot of folks are crowning Texas as the new Georgia in some ways, and Georgia fans are obviously pushing back.
What does that even mean? You got to win at least one natty to be the new Georgia, right?
I think it's just the way they're building. But if you were to, honestly, if you were to tell me 3 years from now, Texas has at least one, Texas should be the favorite right now and are the premier team in the conference and win the most amount of games in the SEC in the next, from last year to 3 years from now. I would say Texas is a good bet to be number one. But this is a big statement weekend for Georgia. A lot of people are doubting the Dogs. And I think before the year, I think a lot of Georgia fans were like, oh, the Pretenders, you feel good about this game. You already went to Tuscaloosa, lost that game. I don't know if it's necessarily an eliminator game, because I think Alabama and Texas would still be really good losses for Georgia, even if they finished 10-2. Like, I think they'd be fine. So I don't think it's necessarily an eliminator game for the Dogs in the CFP, but it does put them. It would be a lot more pressure for Ole Miss and Tennessee for sure, because you can't lose either of those and still make the playoff if you're Georgia.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.